dynamic changed on the next visit. It's like we said it, now we're ready to get to work. And that's what we did this week. We had a lot of work, right? We started with over 50 people Tuesday at the Reconnect session where we went over the findings. I'm going to highlight briefly some of those. Then we had 5 action groups. We're going to hear from those groups tonight and what was accomplished, what you set out to do, what you're committed to do. We also brought together the team leads from those action groups, those who have said, who are going to talk to you tonight actually, said, look, we're going to keep this on track. We're going to make sure that we don't fail. We're going to work together and deliver on what we're talking about here. And here we are at the reveal or the big plan presentation. So to recoup just a bit, there are over 100 people through those focus groups. And I should also point out this PowerPoint will be shared publicly through the long-term recovery and other means, as Diane said. We also are going to do questions at the end, so if you have thoughts, we'll talk about that. But just look at these things that stand out from the focus groups. Housing, short and long term. Guess what? In a month, you heard on Monday what Kim presented about the housing strategy. Things are moving forward. And businesses are opening. There is a cry for that, and finding these displaced businesses and finding these displaced workers, doing more marketing about your, open. There's more communications happening, websites launched, lots of things happening that you all brought to the table here. I even had breakfast with some of those Winter Texans this morning, and I got them. I said, do you want to volunteer? There's lots of places to volunteer. So I think all the things that were brought up here were seriously taken into consideration for action items that you're going to see, you're acting on. And I think that's cool. And that's because the big signal in all those sessions is we want to see progress right away. So I know when the staff person at IEDC called Diane at the chamber and said, hey, you want some help? It was like, let's do an economic development plan. It's like, okay. Now, economic development and strategic planning takes more than a week. However, you guys did a lot in a week, right? We have a short-term recovery plan, and that's really important for building momentum. Because in any planning, if you do things and you're successful and you can report the progress, wow, that gives energy to do the next big thing or the next harder thing. And so that's what we've laid out for you here today. And we're going to talk after the reveal of these 5 action groups and what you're going to do, which is very exciting things. I hope you're ready to learn about the next phase, which is the longer term, which will be a result of all the energy you've accomplished. So for the near term, this recovery action plan for economic development, we have, I call it the Olympics of Aransas County, right? Those are our Olympic rings. Because we've got some dynamos. We've got gold medalists in this room that are going to be right on it. And we're going to start, I'm going to have each of the groups share with you. So the first one is tourism marketing. And our lead for that is Paula Dean. Now, I'm going to have Paula get the microphone here. I just want you to know we're not starting from scratch here, right? You guys are good at tourism marketing. This is about related to things in the near-term messaging, etc.
I'm not sure I need the microphone, honestly. All right. I like to talk with my hands, so you may see me wave the baton. We've been asked to stay brief, and I'm only going to be able to tease you with some of the exciting things that we have ahead. This is our tourism marketing team, but already our group has outgrown this name. These are the seed members of what is soon going to become known as the Aransas County Rockport Fulton Tourism Army. And all of you are going to want to enlist in that army very quickly. We're going to take very select members. So, join quickly because the opportunity is there, but the army is going to grow and grow and grow. So, we want all of you to keep that in mind, that it is a very important part of what's going to happen. Our goal for this is that we want to communicate we are open for business. You know, we're going to do a lot of things to prove that we are all ready for business. And we have the beginning of the Army already started. Since we had our meeting, we've had several new people approach us to join the Army. So rush to get on the list. It's going to be a very big group, but a lot of fun and a lot of productivity will come out of it. We are going to start encouraging day and short stay trips to show that we are open for business. And we're going to do a lot of things that we've done in the past, but we're going to enhance them. We've always been a charming place, but now we're going to put a more personal face on it. It's going to be much more one-on-one. You're going to feel that personal touch. Army's going to be a lot of fun, so don't forget to join it. We're going to be packaging and referrals and cross-selling, doing all kinds of things like that. We want to have honest, specific, and fast communication with everyone. We're going to be creating some mini events, and it won't be just our tourism army that'll be doing it. We'll be partnering with the other members of the Olympic team. So it's going to be, we'll be working with every one of the groups because tourism marketing impacts and supports all of the others as well. And we've already started with the enhanced tourism marketing campaign. We're going to have a preview of that presentation for our Army and the new recruits. So don't forget, you might want to be in at the beginning. By the end of this month, the last week of January, it's scheduled for. So I've just given you a few of the teasers, but don't forget the Army's going to fill up very quickly. So jump in while there's still an opportunity for you to be part of the people who spread the banner of we are open for business. Yay!
Okay, game on, right? Next up, we have Nancy Bolting, who is leading the Business Toolkit and Outreach.
Hi, I'm not going to be much of a cheerleader, but what we're going to rely on through this is a lot of word of mouth. A lot of us came together. These are the people that have participated in this and want to continue to participate. What we would like is for other business owners and people that are vested in the community to also participate, so we're not going to turn anybody down. They have all committed to doing this. What we plan on doing is going out and trying to reach every single business, whether it's brick and mortar, out of your home, anyone that is no longer in business but would like to retain being in business and can't find the funds or can't find the resources. We have a survey that we want to get out to every single business owner that we can and ask you, what is it that you need? There's a lot of us that don't have the funds, we are not able to get the funds, or there's expertise that we can provide you if you would help us with the survey. So we don't want to do it just through email. We would like to basically go business to business, which will make it a little more difficult, but I think one-on-one, being able to talk to the business owners, being able to talk to the people that were directly affected would help a whole lot more than you receiving an email and asking you to answer some survey. So I really do encourage you to please pass the word around and tell people that this is what we want to do. Some of the things that we came up with is not only the assessment, but we want to be able to provide, think of Habitat for Humanity. If you have something that you're capable of doing and you can help someone else, they in turn will turn around and help another business. So we don't have all the funds, but we can do our own resourcing. Accounting, retail, we have people that can do manual labor. I'm great at that. That's all I've been doing since the storm. So those are the things that we're looking for. Katie just went through this. We're using a survey that they provided to some of their business owners, and it has a lot of detailed information, and then it also has some very generic things. So please, that's all I'm asking is help us get the word out, because we do need to help get our business back up and running. And even those that are, may still be struggling and still need the resources. Thank you.
very dedicated group. I am gonna do an add a T. They met on Tuesday. The survey is almost done. So they're not talking about waiting months to do this. This stuff is happening in real time. And next up, we have Louise Pavone. I'm gonna have you come over here to talk about a very exciting initiative for volunteerism.
Thank you. Good evening, Luis Buron, Rockford Center for the Arts. Excited to be here, be a part of this process. We also had an initial meeting earlier this week, and this is the team that is going to be working on volunteerism. This might be a strange, word for you. There was an article in the Pollard Times about this last week, but I can tell you that Paula Dean, Diane Probst, and I and some others have been working on this since last year. I'm very passionate about this idea because it is a way to build long-term tourism through volunteers that will come to our area from different parts of the country. And what are they seeking is activities that will help our community. They're seeking authentic relationships with our citizens of Rockport and Fulton. And we have an incredible community here that is able to relate very, very well with the public. We are used to working with tourists and visitors. We've been doing it for a very long time. We're excellent at it, and I think conveying the sense of excitement that that Rockport and Fulton have for our visitors will assist us. So I just want to tell you really briefly what the goals of our team are, and please, if you want to volunteer for it, your name was not on that list, let me know. So our goal is really to attract volunteers that will spend money in our community and help with recovery, build relationships with volunteers through a positive experience so that they can come back repeatedly to visit and continue to spend money in our local economy. Some of the action steps are listed there. So we are going to define the volunteer work projects and create a master centralized list for these projects. We are going to target participants that will be aligned with each of those work projects. And we are going to package several things that are important in order for this to be successful, and that is lodging, transportation, activities for these volunteers, and tours. And lastly, we are going to market. And we're going to do that to attract these volunteers repeatedly for years to come, not just for while we need our cities to rebuild, but into the future, and to document what they are doing. And after they leave, continue to stay in touch with them so we build long-term relationships. This is a model that has been used before. It was used in Katrina. The model is that we are utilizing to base this on is Rhino, Rebuilding Hope in New Orleans. We want to rebuild hope in Rockport. We want to rebuild hope in Fulton. We want to rebuild hope in Aransas County. And I'm prepared to step up to help us lead that way. Thank you.
Awesome, and I want to say, because I know the reporter's here, but thanks to her article, we did get some emails immediately after that article from across the globe saying, you want volunteers, we're ready, tell us when, where do we show up? So this is real, people. This is not just some made up word or made up thing. Next up, though, we have your Donna T. I'm not even going to call her Donna Townsend because I know her as Donna T. And very impressed with what's happening in downtown Fulton.
Hi everybody, how are you? I don't have much of a voice today, so you're probably going to have a better day. Downtown Fulton, this team, what we've met on also, has been in this town for a while, and they've had, I guess, how do you want to say this? They've been around the block, okay? So they've been on this. I'm glad that I have them. They're on my team. So it's not like we're playing with new people, not that I don't want them, but I like the fact that this is serious of what we want to talk about. So for Rockport and Fulton, this is what I really like about it. What we're doing, it can also cross over for downtown both ways. So it's not just Fulton, this is also going to be Rockport too. Our goals is to increase the traffic downtown, try to make it safe, meaning lighting, signage, so forth. We want the downtown to come out, be full and fresh again. So of course our restaurants, of course our bars, we're hoping that where we have empty spots now, we can build new, meaning a little bit of shopping type things or whatever. Those are our long-term plans. Our short-term, we have to make things happen now. So the now for us is the waterways. You know, we have people, our own people, plus tourism, when they come through, they can't walk down our roads. They can't walk in our waters. So we're hoping, like say, once a month, we get a whole pile of trailers to show up. Let's just walk the waters, pull that stuff out of there. Quit looking at the bad stuff. Let's make it pretty stuff, right? So that's one of our goals. We know it's going to happen. Yes, I'm going to need volunteers. Yes, it's going to be all over Facebook and it's going to happen. So that's one of them. I talked about the lighting and the signage. We have to have lights, my God, right? So we already got the ball rolling for that. AEP is going to be working with us to try to get that on track soon so we can have all that. We also talked about our businesses to have kind of our own flag. Let's just say, you know, we are open. And we wanted to make it a master flag. So say we have a green flag down in Fulton, and every time another business opens, they get another green flag. So that our tourism and our locals know that they're actually open. Rockport could do the same. This is what we talk about with cross-referencing. So they maybe have a red flag, and now people know that that flag is raised high because you are open again, and maybe they'll walk through your doors. Marketing, meaning Yelp, all your Facebook, any kind of social media stuff, we want to stay on that, try to make everybody aware of the daily openings, what's going on, who's next. You're seeing a lot of that now on Facebook, but not everybody does Facebook, believe it or not. So we're trying to reach out in other ways to make it more possible. So that's what we're up to, and we're hoping that if you want to get involved in any of this stuff, of course, you know who I am, you can find me. Maybe I'll buy you a drink.
Now, honestly, I don't think she should buy us a drink. I think we should spend money in downtown Fulton. I don't know about you. So next up is downtown Rockport, and it's true, there's lots of crossover and leverage. So on with that, Ms. Jennifer.
Well, absolutely. So the crossover is definitely a benefit because you can see repeatedly the goals, the actions, they do cross over, and there's additional oomph that comes out of that, additional energy. And that's the one thing we have here is a lot of positive energy. We have it on all these teams, and we're going to use it. So downtown Rockport team, fairly large team, one of the largest ones. Again, a lot of vested interest. You've got people who have worked downtown, owned businesses downtown for years. You have the governmental impact participation. So there's a lot of good energy here. And our goals are to attract local residents. And that's one thing that when we talk about tourism and marketing, a lot of times we forget the locals. There are many locals that never go downtown. So there's focus there, but it's also obviously for tourists that come down, and the big goal here is the positive economic impact, which we know is something that's right up there to be done. Okay? All right, our action steps, there's 10 of them. Again, this is a fairly large group. So one thing I want to point out is I have 2 other cohorts. We have actually 3 team leaders on this, and that is Karen Ernst, Kimmy Moak, and then myself. So we're going to divide and conquer, and we have already broken this down a little bit further, meeting before the end of January. Actually, we have 3 meetings already scheduled before the end of January. And let's just run through those. The group cleanup events, beautification, taking that a little bit further than what is currently in place. The business needs and assessment to open, which falls right into the business tool kit. The cohesive business hours, that's been a topic for quite some time. This initiative will drive that to be something that will come to pass. Monthly events, that's something that's in place, but we're going to enhance that. Infuse more cultural arts downtown. Theming branding. I think most of you are aware that September 1st, just after Harvey hit, we had scheduled the new city street signs in the Cultural Arts District, which did not occur, but guess what? It's back on our planning. Review and update Heritage District Plan. That's a little bit longer poll. And infrastructure, the restrooms, parking, relocating the sculpture garden, and addressing the flooding issue. Some of those are a little bit longer term, obviously, but the energy is here. We'd love for you to join this team. We're going to divide and conquer, and that's how it's going to be done. Thank you.
Are you excited to get involved if you aren't already? It's, what you don't see here is this is the bubble up. I mean, there are very specific action items. People are just doing. Like, we can lift that one thing. We can do that one thing. So this is primed, ready to go. As you see, you have great leadership across the community, and many ask for involvement and opportunities. And so now what I want to pivot to, that's short term. So when we say short, near term, we're saying, if you looked at the timelines for all these, we're really looking at next 3 to 6 months. In fact, some of these things that you saw talked about here as tactics, you'll be hearing success stories about probably within the next 2 months or sooner. They're really jumping on it. This is intentional, step by step, let's get it done things. And so now what I wanted to pivot to here is some longer term recommendations for growing the economy in Aransas County. And this will help pave the way. Some of the things you saw up there, people are getting started on, like you just saw in Rockport. Some of these are pretty big long-term issues, flooding issues. You can start doing some planning now, but that may take more than 6 months. So some longer-term recommendations for economic development are based in best practices for economic development, regardless of devastation. That there are things that this is now an opportunity to say, wow, what can we be doing to grow our economy further, to diversify our economy, etc. So to start any planning, I did a high-level SWOT analysis, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, to put this in context when I give you the recommendations. And then, hey, just to capture your attention, these are my recommendations, and the follow-on later in this presentation will be, and here's the plan that's being worked on and being carried out to go further with economic development planning. So everything in planning and in economic development should always start with leveraging your strengths. And we've done that with these action pieces, this near-term action groups. They are focused on leveraging your strengths. There is no doubt that you have natural assets. Harvey didn't take that away from you. In fact, I almost drove off the road when I was coming from Fulton because there were so many birds on one of these piers that I was like, I believe you. I mean, like, the birds are here, right? And so you have that. And you all know that. That's why you live here and you care about this place. And it's probably a big reason of why you want to be here. I am absolutely, I would be remiss to not put bullet 2 right up there, right? This is a can-do group of people. We have worked with the action group team leads, though, to make sure that you don't become the tired 10, or the tired 100, because that can happen. And so this can-do spirit, exceptional thing that you want to keep fulfilling each other and making sure that you're taking care of each other because it's a strength. You know about the charm, and it's not just the charm of the place, it's the charm of the people. There's a unique kind of synergy that's going on in this place. You are really good at tourism. You are very hospitable. You have great places to stay. You have great people. That all contributes to who you are. And that's why we did start with tourism. Go back to what you know first. And that's true in any recovery effort and in any economic development effort. Your events are extremely successful. Extremely successful. That's why people know you. That might be their first touch, and then they come back for more things. You may not realize this, or even as a small town say, well, that's not that cool. But I'm going to tell you, a strength is your locally owned businesses. You're not overwhelmed with big box or chain restaurants. So if I was to go on vacation to Aruba, it would be the direct opposite. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. It's like you feel like you're in downtown Dallas and you've got every fast food around. But here, every place you can go has a personal touch, personal owner. More importantly is the economic impact of locally owned business is far outweighs that of chains and big boxes. So this is a great advantage to growing your economy. Your fishing industry is strong. It may not be as strong as it was pre-Harvey, but these are certain an element of industry that you can continue to expand. Your leadership with the chamber, wow, the tireless hours. I see Betty here and others. I mean, you've all been in all these meetings. Your staff as well, and of course, as long-term recovery team. I mean, give them a hand. I've heard so many. The debris is being cleaned up. I mean, it's changing overnight. This is very positive thing. And technology. Okay, thank you very much, Tim. So I think you'd all agree. You might go, yeah, we know it. What I want you to know is don't take it for granted. These are pillars of things to keep you going. Okay? We do need to acknowledge weaknesses or things that might be holding you back from the true potential that can occur in Aransas County. And, although you've had strength in tourism, which is an element of economic development, there is no comprehensive economic development plan in Aransas County. There's no economic development resiliency plan. Now, to your defense, that's kind of a new thing for economic developers, too. And that's that plan that, oh my goodness, if something like Harvey hits, we know how to deal with it right up front. And I'm going to bet you're working on that now. You also have no formal economic development organization. You have a strong chamber. It's not exactly the same thing. It can take on some roles of economic development, but you don't have an economic development organization like your peers do, as an example here. And especially in Texas, which has state statutes 4A and 4B, and I'm not going to get into the technicality of that, except that those are tools that the state allows you to add an incremental sales tax to fund an economic development organization and incentives. And you have allocated that sales tax increment to another program. Okay, that's just a statement of fact. There's other ways to have economic development organizations. They're successful in other forms all across the globe outside of Texas. It's just that Texas has that state statute for that. You're not able to access it. So here's another thing. It's kind of scary when any economy is dependent on one industry, right? So some of you know I do work in Oklahoma. What's their industry? Same as Houston, do you, right? Oil. Well, Houston's a little more diverse. But man, up and down, that's not good for anyone. Tourism, maybe you've never had cycles. You sort of have seasonal cycles. But when you have a devastation like this, it all of a sudden makes an impact, right? So all eggs in one basket, that's a weakness. The workforce piece is the number one issue for any business. If you go to a business, especially those that are primary industry or basic industry, those that are innovating, creating products, doing things, they want skilled labor. And the question is, where is your talent pool? One, are they coming back? And who is here? What are their skills? Those are really important things that businesses want to know if they're going to make an investment. So we're using a lens of economic development here, because workers' talent, skills are what are going to attract businesses today anywhere in the world. So the question is, what is the talent pool? Unknown. Data, facts, what that is needed. But then even that is, do you have housing for your workforce? So for the businesses today, even if you didn't attract another business, is there housing? And we know you're working on this. This is a challenge that much of this was destroyed. I would say it's bigger than that though, because workforce housing is also about affordable housing. That's not a bad word. That just means that based on the wage or the earnings, that they can then afford to buy a house, that they're not putting 100% of their income into housing. So if I was in Silicon Valley, you'd go, that's successful. Well, you know what? They don't have a lot of affordable housing either because people, to afford the very high prices there. And then at the bottom here, my question would be is, where are you going to put businesses if you want to recruit more of them? Where are those buildings? Where are those sites? Because your competitors have those things. So this is really tough long-term stuff. For especially beyond your retail and commercial. The good news is we focus on what we can do well and we build on that, okay? So that's the strengths and weaknesses. Let's take a look at some opportunities. Your opportunities today as it stands. Okay, Harvey was a crappy thing that happened to you. It was unfair and all the things that go with that. But let's look at the good side of this. You do have a clean slate to rebuild some things in a way that you can design and move forward. I would say, though, that calls for thoughtful planning. I challenge you to build better, more unique, and of course stronger, right? Resilient to those potential storms that come forward. So, you can think big long term. You have an opportunity to do things better and different than you did. You can, as a result, that can create more of a destination for residents, for tourists. And I'm also going to throw in there entrepreneurs. Because you know what? People who have their own business, start businesses, they start businesses where they want to live. Would you not disagree with me? Okay? So that's an opportunity that maybe you hadn't really thought about. You were just like, well, we're just trying to get as many visitors here. You know what visitors do? They find places they like and then like, why don't I just make this where I live and then I can have my business here. Those destination developments, certainly there is opportunity for something unique, creative, world-class as a harborfront development that still honors your charm, right? That still honors who you are. The Heritage District, you've already done some thoughtful planning. Now there's work to review that and upgrade it. What a great opportunity. A world-class regional conference center. There's been a study done by the Chamber on how many rooms, what does it take? Because I'm from out of town, I can say this. I would say even think about, does it have to be a standalone conference center? Could it have more rooms with it? Could it be bigger? Does it reinvent in a way that you can do things that maybe you couldn't do before because you're taking this to the next level. And maybe you need a civic center, which Positas has kind of served in that role, and maybe you need another thing that's this big conference center where you can attract in the off-season more conferences, get more exposure, get more people eating in restaurants during your off-season, etc. You've been to those conference towns, right? You could be one of those. You could be. You really could be bringing those kind of dollars in here. This is also the time to create the destination that don't just, and you know this, it's in your housing strategy, but you could build same old housing. You also could move it forward into where housing's going today with more mixed use. That's going to give you opportunities for your retailers. That's going to give you unique opportunities, perhaps for these entrepreneurs. And when I'm talking about entrepreneurship, I'm not just talking about the great, like Nancy. So Nancy, I went, by the way, go spend money at Bella LaRue. But great entrepreneur. That's one kind. There's other kinds of entrepreneurs that might not have a storefront that are also doing world-class work, that might hire 3 different people and they need just a small office space and they can work anywhere doing work because you have infrastructure for technology or other things that enable their phones, for that matter, that enable them to do things in your town. And then, of course, you don't have you need to rebuild some of your community government buildings and assets. And there's an opportunity to create that in a new unique center that may have the mixed use as well, that may have other, utilization of venues. You can do it in a better, more exciting way, and not just what you had before, but in a way that serves more needs that help you accomplish longer term goals. I would say that, I don't know about you, did you feel a little momentum in the room earlier? Okay, so the wave is, maybe that's a wrong analogy, but the momentum's building, right? That chugga, right? That train's getting on the track really hard. That army's building, the tourism army's building. So it is really important now, and that's why we started with those wins, because we want you to celebrate that and build that momentum, and I can tell you that team leads are committed to that, but you have an opportunity to take the work of the recovery team, the work of you, just cleaning up your front yards and cleaning up your businesses and the initiatives that we talked about earlier. Turn around and go, we got that done today. We got that done this week. We got that done this month. We got that done in the last 100 days. And use that energy to get into even bigger work for long-term recovery. I will say that along that line, I would challenge you to think about beefing up entrepreneurship efforts into a full-on program. You have opportunities with volunteers. We talked about the voluntourism, and then there are organizations reaching out as well, and many resources. So there are those resources, federal, state, philanthropic. Those are great. The key to this, though, is if you're not prepared, your ask could fall on deaf ears. Because they're like, well, you're going to use it for what? Or as Kim says so well, pixie dust, it just kind of obliterates. No, you want to make impact, right? So, these are just opportunities. You haven't got to my recommendations. But my thought here is, don't be shy, be bold. We were in one of our meetings, they were talking about beautification. And it came up in Rockport, but it transfers to Fulton as well, and they're like, what is that number to do it right? We don't have to be greedy, but we can do it right this time. And they got more creative about what those numbers could be and who we could ask and the types of things along that line. So the last part, we did strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. These are big threats though, right? This is reality. Will those businesses reopen? Will people come back to work? I'm also going to tell you there is a downside to tourism. So not only do you have all your eggs in one basket with tourism, but there is a threat from successful tourism. You're like, what? We're successful. There is though, because most wages in tourism do not pay a living wage. And I'm not trying to be political here. I'm just saying this is a fact of the matter. To buy a home, to advance, most don't. At the same time, demand because you've made people aware of your great place, it drives up land prices. It drives up housing, right? Many of those jobs, though, not only do they not pay that well, they might be part-time, that's limited benefits. So economic development is, we want to have people have the opportunity to grow wealth, right? Because when they make more money, they spend more money at the grocery store, right? We all do, right? Or we spend more money at whatever retailer or at the restaurants because there's more disposable income. So it's important to have living wage jobs or good paying jobs to afford those amenities as well as benefits, because that can be a drain on your public system as well. So I'm not saying stop doing tourism. I think this is a demand or an illustration of why it's important to go beyond, to not just diversify the economy so you don't have all eggs in one basket, but due to the fact that other industries can also bring more wealth to your community. And that's you want strong working participants in your community earning well. So I'm just going to call a spade, and you need to know, because I also do corporate site selection, and I have to say it's going to be, if I had a project that was seriously looking at this area, well, they probably would be, because they're scared right now. The perception is if a hurricane hit, it's going to hit again. And that's just reality. So this is a threat that you will have to deal with over time. But it doesn't have to hold you back. Just be aware that there are going to be some investors and companies that say never in a million years. Sorry, there are other places that aren't. And so you go to the others that are willing to work with you. And you keep documenting how many years you haven't had one, okay? And all the things you have in place so that safety and resiliency planning is in place because it can happen. It's a natural disaster. I don't think I have a problem with this, but I want to call it out so that you don't have a problem with it. And there is a threat. There could be a threat that you sit back and say, somebody from the outside is going to fix this for us. There are federal dollars. I love these notes shaking. In fact, when I was at the long-term recovery meeting yesterday, there was actually a comment to this that said, we're not waiting for anybody, we're going to do it. So I know that this isn't, there's a potential in this, but I know that you're like, cross that off there because that's not how we're can-do people. I can't cross this off though. There are thousands and thousands of communities that are looking for the same thing you are. And sadly, they're not going, well, we're just going to hang out now while they get their act together. It's almost like you have to double time it now, right? That train's got to go faster, work harder, because they never stopped. And they're not going to give a timeout for you to catch up. I know that's why we got, things happening in 24 hours and the tourism army growing overnight. That's why that stuff's happening. Again, our opportunities to build on the momentum of the good work you're doing, right? So let me give you some long-term recommendations, longer term, if you will. It is prudent to have a comprehensive economic development plan or strategy for how you're going to grow your economy. You don't have to do everything in that plan because usually plans are 3 to 5 years, And so, but having a plan, then you know the direction you're going. You have a conversation about the things you want to work on. You have input on that. You're committed to it. And some real thoughts about what we would do in that plan. First, I would say go deeper with a SWOT analysis or analysis of your true assets and liabilities. Get the data behind that. Go further with that. I'm giving you my perceptions and observations here of the SWOT analysis. Again, back to workforce is the #1 factor for businesses. So this housing strategy, you cannot take your foot off the pedal, off the gas. This is going to be important for your long-term economic growth as well, and I think you know that. But if you do choose to go down a path of trying to bring in more businesses or even help your existing businesses grow, because I'd ask that question, like, how those great businesses you have, where are they going to grow to? There is need to have ready-to-go sites and buildings. So that would be sites that are, what the master plan is. You have a site plan for that. You have the infrastructure to the site. You have owners that are willing to sell at a reasonable rate, or it's publicly controlled. Those are other ways of doing it. You actually have facilities for what we call traded sector, primary, or basic industry, those businesses that aren't retail or commercial. So those are office buildings, or if it's manufacturing. You have to determine what those industries are so that you can have the properties for them. Don't turn your back on tourism, it's a strength, right? So rebuild those assets, your aquarium, new amenities, right? Community center, regional conference center, harborfront. Keep that moving forward. That's not going to happen in 6 months, but you have to be building that plan for that. The full-scale entrepreneurship program, I think that somewhat it's low-hanging fruit. It's further out than 6 months. But I'm going to give you an example. So in Central Oregon, there's a town called Bend. And this was, so Oregon has been a timber industry for a long time. Spotted owl hurt them, devastated that industry. Lots of other things, like all of a sudden, overnight, Bend's logging and timber industry went away. It was like overnight they had a heartbeat. And all their jobs went away. And they were like, what are we going to do? Now, meanwhile, they're still kind of in the middle of nowhere. And they have skiing, and they have hiking, and so they have tourism, right? And they said, we're going to do tourism. And then they said, but our tourists could end up being contributing citizens to our business community. So let's not lose sight of entrepreneurship. So you may have never heard of Bend, Oregon. But I'm going to tell you that the Economic Development Group for Central Oregon, they said, we're taking the long haul. We're going to go with entrepreneurs, and we're going to see how we can get them to create businesses here. Maybe they'll move here because they want to create their business here, whatever it is, but we're going to nurture and be open to entrepreneurs. And today, their venture capital, right? Venture capital is not just in San Francisco, but their venture capital conference is one of the largest on the West Coast. And this is a little, they worked as a region, but we're talking about 65,000. So it's a little bigger than you, but there, it's a long way. It's not like someone's just going to come put a business there, because they're 2.5 hours over the mountains to Portland, or 3 hours, I think. So, it's not easy to get to this place. So they decided, okay, we're going to grow our own. And they put it in. They had pub talks. They did a series of many, many different things. And I just say that because they could have turned over and said, we're done. All we got is tourism. But they decided, what else can we do? They're a hotbed in tech, in sports equipment manufacturing, all kinds of different things. And this is just one-up companies that are starting. So I say that to inspire you, to say that there's ways to diversify without chasing Amazon HQ2, because they're not coming to Rockport, I'm going to tell you. And chasing Toyota, and chasing all these things that aren't realistic fits for you, but you can create things by also having lots of gravity from entrepreneurs who want, and maybe some of you in the room are entrepreneurs who's dying to start a different new business. So that's a good thing too. You may choose in your strategy to be intentional and focused about really targeted recruitment, and that recruitment can be for retail leakage. So targeting retail companies that residents have to spend that dollar outside to get that product or service. So that's one part of targeting. Another part of targeting may be this piece to diversify the economy with very focused types of industries. Maybe there's something about the fishing industry that are products and service and supply chain. Maybe there's something about equipment that bird watchers use, where that product could actually be innovated here, manufactured here, tested here. I don't know. Like, you can think out of the box, which I think was a principle of the team leads here. It doesn't always have to be something, typical. It could be leveraging regional activities, like the oil industry is very strong here in the energy industry. So thinking about different ways to go about that. Of course, you'll want to formalize your efforts in an economic development organization. That doesn't mean you have to create a new one. Economic development efforts occur in chambers as well, and Diane didn't ask me to say that. I just want you to know they could be in public entities, they can be in private entities like the chamber, they could be a public-private partnership. There's all kinds of forms, and they don't have to just be the way Texas has their 4A and 4B. In fact, you referenced Katie earlier, Nancy. Katie is not one of those 4A, 4B sales tax funds. And I'm sure that Lance would be happy to show you how to do what they did. And of course, there's opportunities to pursue resources longer term. The key is you got to really get your strategy in order to make very strategic asks, because those asks are rewarded because you've done your homework. You put people behind it. Those that just have the handout, I'm not sure how you're going to use it. I also will say that there's a lot of resources within the region and the state, for that matter, IEDC, where you can ask for help from them. For instance, the business toolkit. We are not going to create that from scratch. We're going to go over to Corpus Christi and we're going to ask them, what do you guys got? Can we just, give us what you're using? We need some help, some mentoring in this. And you know what? Economic developers do that all the time. So, and I will say one other thing. You know how to find me. So you can ask me. If I don't know, I'm going to send you to someone who might. So I do that anyways. So yeah, you're like, oh my God, I thought we had momentum. This is just to pique your interest. You do have momentum. In fact, you are doing things on this list already, and so I'm going to have Kim talk about that right now.
So she was explaining that what we've done so far, it's a get started type of action items to create that momentum. Long term, as Allison was saying, we need to have a long-term action plan for economic development. It is a basic for performing economic development. What we have been doing all week long, our long-term recovery team and Diane, we have been listening very hard to start the elements of a long-term economic development plan. Allison took most of the wind out of most of the items, the basic items, because absolutely. So I'm not going to go over all of these, but I want to kind of talk about some of the processes that we might engage in order to develop that long-term plan. She mentioned the Economic Development Organization. The state of Texas has a group, it's out of the governor's office, called the Texas Economic Development Council. They have offered to come down and do a number of things for us. One is to talk about the best strategy for putting together an economic development organization and what might most be effective here. They will also, it's on another slide, actually the diversifying the economy. They will come down and help us look at all of our assets, our natural resources, our workforce, and do an analysis for us to see if there are some other industry targets that we can focus on. So we've got some resources that we can hone in on. Allison mentioned rebuilding and building new local attractions and venues. And then there's a whole set of initiatives that we've already started and that will be expanding, and we'll be having some conversation about how we might be able to expand the goal of retaining and supporting our businesses. Also, it hadn't come up, but some of the basic things that you look up in an economic development plan is your transportation, things like your airport and the highways and entryways that people come to visit the community or to ship goods and services. Another topic is image and identity. We did talk earlier about the volunteering program, and all of the things that have been presented tonight, they will be incorporated into this longer term plan. That included the marketing and promotion, things like branding, and then of course some of the bigger items. And when I talk about long-term plan, that doesn't mean that you're going to wait till year 3 to start things. Some of these things take years and years to work through, develop, and finance. So that there's actually 2 perspectives on that. Priority, but also that you may take a long time to work through it. That would be the case for our Harborfront Boardwalk, Heritage District, and then also for Fulton on the Downtown District and the Community Center. One of the things that we've already worked out, of course, as you all know, we already have a heritage plan. We need to take a look back at that, pull it off the shelf, revitalize it, talk through it again, see if some adjustments need to be made. Part of that can be, this is an opportunity. We know that we need a new city hall. We need a new courthouse. One of the things that many communities do that create a jump start for a district is they locate governmental buildings within those districts, and they become the anchor and create foot traffic for so that businesses are attracted to that as well. And I've actually talked to developers. We are on the phone constantly talking to developers and business investors who might be interested in this type of thing, and it is viable. I used to be an economic developer. I wasn't just a city manager, and we recruited about $700 million worth of investment. I talked to these people. It is truly possible. On the Fulton Downtown District, we have been in contact with the American Planning Association and the Texas Planning Association, and they have agreed to provide us with expertise just like what the International Economic Development council did with Allison, we're going to have some planning professionals come in and take a look at the whole downtown Fulton and Taws and Paws, and looking at that as a full district. We'll talk about theming and branding. We'll have a full plan that's developed for Fulton. Also, of course, some of the common things that we need is, of course, anything in the cultural arts. We need to focus on that. There'll be tactics that are listed out, but that's going to take some discussion with the community to work through each of these independent initiatives. I mentioned transportation enhancements, and through this process, we also talked about some different things that can create foot traffic. Things like small, very many small events, such as little music vignettes, things that help create character and culture to the different areas. And then there's also the livability, quality of place, quality of life, all of those things. They're kind of key words. Taking a look at that. What do the corridors look like? Do they need enhancements? Are there things that we can do to unify the look in the communities? So we'll have some conversation about that and come up with tactics in order to accomplish that. Very much, very, very important for tourism. Allison mentioned workforce housing. We have a full plan. We've gone through a full process for housing. We're trying to finalize that. That's very important. When funding initiatives come up, the federal agencies want to know that you have a plan, that you've spoken to the public about it, that you are amenable to adding that workforce housing to your housing mix. And that's what's going to be needed. So things will go more smoothly for us because we're already working through those issues and adopting a plan. And then finally, healthcare. That's one of the important notches of a community, the wellness of the community, and all the assets that are needed in order to support that. So what we have written up a set of goals for the long-term plan. There are many tactics that are listed under that, but that's just from us listening this week. What will be associated with that will be, we've got to talk through who would be responsible for it, what kind of timing, and what kind of resources would be necessary in order to start working on a full economic development plan. So what we're going to do, we're going to have some workshops just for the long-term plan. We're going to take a breather and then come back in a few weeks and have those workshops as well. And in the meantime, what I would invite everyone to do is we're going to put that out on the website. So the full draft plan will be on the Rockport Fulton DisasterRecovery.com. As you're thinking about things, different tactics in order to accomplish the goals, or if you have, like, that's never going to work and here's why, or how about this, have you thought of that, send them to me. That's my email address. You can also call our hotline that we have and just give us your opinion. And we'll start thinking through those things and researching them so that we can have a really productive workshop talking through and trying to get our strategies together for long term.
So, yeah. And this is also going to be on that website, this whole PowerPoint, right? So get that website down. In fact, if you want to know anything about the most current news for recovery in this area, you got to go to that website. Have the mayor's letter, which is on that website, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. What I love about this, remember in the strength I said can-do people? So we got can-do things happen in the short term, but the can-do is happening in the long-term planning as well, right? So don't be overwhelmed with what you just heard on the longer-term stuff, because it's in process. The reality is you are making huge strides. I know you don't see it, right? But you are making huge strides, and I'm just excited for the future of what's happening here. I'm coming back. I'm just going to tell you. I'm going to drive my husband, or I don't know, I'll have many reasons to come back, I'm sure. Let me just kind of wrap up with a couple things. Do not, I'm not going to start now. Focus on what you're good at to get started. You are doing that. You're really good at that. And I know these team leads that just talked today, they're really good at getting you to work on those things you're really good at. The leadership in this community, the can do. So focus on that and make sure that the short term you're going to have success. It's going to, and I know that you're going to hear more about it. I'm going to ask you to like repost and reshare and everything that is on that positive. And you know what? It's something. The train is moving forward. Things are moving forward. It may not be in your mind the exact thing or the exact detail, but you know what? Moving forward is a huge accomplishment, and you need to celebrate that. So that celebration, that positive momentum, it's going to take time, yet that short-term things are going to help you build for these long-term things. So I couldn't really get the graphic to work, but I look at it like this spiral up. It's like Mary Poppins going up with your activities. And so keep that up. Know that every little thing matters that you celebrate. You deserve that celebration for the work that you're doing. When you do that cleanup day in Fulton and Rockport, I want to see it all over social media that this is happening and the fun you were having and that you got, block by block things happening and that, 461 businesses, I'm sure it's going to be 1,000 tomorrow, as soon as it goes because you're working that fast. I am very happy that I got to see your sunrises. I know you get to take for granted those. They're beautiful. I probably didn't even see the most beautiful one in your mind, but to me it was really beautiful. And I know that you have many, many more beautiful sunrises, metaphorically as well, for this community. It's going to come back. It is. I'm not going to say it's going to. It is coming back stronger. It is coming back bolder and better. You are the new Rockport, the new Fulton, the new Aransas County, and so I commend you for that. And thank you for letting me help a little bit on this journey.
Thank you, everyone. Allison will be available if you have questions. This also will be on the website if you have questions. Is there anything else? No? Okay. All right, thank you very much.